Welcome to Pies Around the House. Now recently I've been doing a bit of decorating. I've been trying to cover this wallpaper behind me with some white trade matte emulsion paint. So I used a paint that I've used several times before. I applied it to the wall, and to be quite honest with you, this time it was like applying milk. It was thin, watery, the coverage was poor, and when it dried out it was almost as bad as when I applied it to the wall. So I then went out, I bought another popular trade matte emulsion paint. I came back, did exactly the same, 2 coats of paint, and it covered dark colours absolutely perfectly. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 2 paints that I used. We're going to apply each paint to this peach coloured wall behind me. We'll let it dry out and you can judge the results for yourself. So one of the paints I'm using is the Leyland Trade Contract Matte, and the other is the Wix's Matte Emulsion. So if I just move the paint around like that, you can already see that the Wix's paint is slopping around all over the place, and the Leyland Trade Matte Emulsion is a lot thicker and gloopy. And one thing I would say from experience, if you're going to use the Wix's paint, it needs a good stir. The Leyland paint doesn't. So the first thing I'm going to do is apply a bit of the Wix paint with a brush to the wall. And now I'm going to apply some of the Leyland paint to the wall. Now I may not do it justice on camera, but this Leyland paint is a lot thicker. It's a lot more viscous and you can feel it when you paint it on, a lot more creamy. This is like painting water, or as I said earlier, milk. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some Wix's paint with a roller. Now I'm going to apply some Leyland paint with the roller. And just to be clear, this is a clean roller. I haven't used paint on it already today, so the paint is a little bit thin for both, but hopefully it's consistent. And you can see how, again, this one was more or less spreading across the wall, especially when you've got something like wallpaper like this that's got more of a shiny finish, whereas this one definitely had more adhesion and more along the lines of higher end paints. All I am going to do quickly is get rid of these run marks here, because I don't want those, because I'll be painting the wall later. And we'll come back in a couple of hours once this is dried off and we'll see what we got. Right, so whilst I've been painting the rest of the house, approximately 2 hours and 22 minutes has passed. So this is touch dry now. I thought I'd show you what it looks like. And as you can see, and I mentioned earlier, this one is very thin. This is the Wix's paint, just to remind you. And I appreciate that I put it on with a fresh roller, so it's not a really good coverage. I didn't do it for too long, but I wanted to try and show you a true representation of a quick swipe with a roller across the wall and how it adheres to the wall. So here's a closer look at the 2 paints. Now I'll go to the Wix's one first. Now if you come in really carefully, you can see all those small dimples there, and the paint really struggles to fill the gaps in between, and that means that the ridges are left exposed. And then when you go over with your second coat, the same thing seems to happen, and it fills the gaps slightly, but the ridges still protrude. Then you've got areas like this where it just doesn't adhere to the slightly shiny surface underneath. Now in contrast to that, if you come across here and you look at the Leyland paint, you can see it's really filled in those gaps, and some of it is already solid. And that just means that when you go over with your second coat, it's got a really nice solid base coat for the new coat to go over, and it binds to it nicely and pretty much fills all the gaps. Now again, looking at the brush strokes, you can see using the brush with the Wix's paint, it's done a bit of a better job than using the roller. You can still see all the peach colour underneath. Whereas you come over here and you look at the Leyland paint in contrast, and it's almost filled it up already. And you can see that looks a lot better now it's dried off. But you find the Wix's paint, when it dries off, doesn't really look a great deal different to when you apply it. Whereas this Leyland paint does seem to go a lot whiter once it's dry. So I'm just by another wall of the house that's had 2 coats of this Leyland paint, and that was the same peach colour as that wall when I started to apply the paint. And you can see it's an absolutely perfect white. It's given good application and you can't see the peach colour underneath whatsoever. So I've just come in for a really close look at this wallpaper, and you can see what I mean about these little dimples and the ridges, and 2 coats of this paint has covered this absolutely perfectly. Now don't get me wrong, enough coats of the Wix's paint and you will get there, but time is money, and on this occasion, the Wix's paint was £9 for the tub. So you might say, well, what do you expect for £9? The problem is that's normally £12, which is what I've paid previously. And in the past, it has been good. So I was expecting the same product, but it seems to me they've watered that down a lot. Now, the Leyland I got from Screwfix, and it's currently on offer at 2 tubs for £26, so that's £13 a tub. And you can imagine 2 coats of this or 4 coats of this. Now imagine how much time you're saving for £3 extra a tub, which in my view is a no-brainer. Now, one thing that I do need to mention here is that I would argue that the Wix's paint, when it dries off, is a bit whiter. So when you have your brilliant white colour and you have your magnolias, this one does go quite white. Now, this one, when it dries off, it looks nice and white there against the peach, but it has got a slightly off-white colour when it's completely dry. Now for me, that's no problem at all. I'm decorating this house and I want the whole thing white anyway. So a slightly off-white is good. And I'll tell you, if you've ever used Dulux before, the closest I would say it looks like is the Jasmine White by Dulux. So it's a very nice colour, but if you put it next to a brilliant white, it is slightly off-white. So bear that in mind. Now going back to the Wix's paint, there is one application that may be useful for, and that is to paint onto fresh plaster. Now I would argue you could use that paint onto fresh plaster without watering the paint down. So that might be a purpose for that. But if you're just using it to cover a wall, I wouldn't bother. It's going to take too long, time is money, and no one wants to be putting 4 coats of paint on the wall. So on that note, if you've used a cheap white emulsion paint and you think it's better than this, please let us know in the comment section below. If you've got one that's not as good, but you think it gives a whiter finish, again, let us know in the comment section below, because all information is useful for everyone watching the video. So if you're interested in using the Leyland paint, I'll put a link to it in the description section below. If you have found this video useful, can you please give it a like? And if you haven't done so already, can you please subscribe to my channel and press that bell icon for regular notifications. I've been Pouter around the house. Ta-ta, farewell.